Hello and welcome to the Money Compass.
In each episode, we will be preparing you for your journey through the world of finance and helping you tick off the destinations on your financial itinerary.
Pack your bags and prepare for takeoff as you navigate your way to financial success.
Is there kind of a cost saving in using your travel agent? Does it tend to cost a little bit more? What would you kind of say your view on it is?
I think it can be both, to be honest. Generally, a travel agent will always be able to give you the same price as online.
Mm-hmm.
There are times when we can't. And in that time, then the benefits of using a travel agent really do cover that sort of additional cost. And it's never huge. It's never a big amount. And then you also have to think about that huge benefit is your travel agent is basically on call. You can always get through to them. If you use someone that is independent, you know that you can get hold of them. You're not going to be sitting on a 3-hour long queue trying to find someone to then also have to maybe call back again and explain your situation to the next person that you've spoken to and the next one. Yeah.
So you've got the same point of contact all the time.
All the time. They know you, they know your family, they know exactly what it is that you want. I get people phoning me at 8 o'clock in the morning and I'm there. And if I can't answer the phone straight away, then you'll get a phone call back in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The same in the evening. So you're always there. We're there when you're checking in on your flight, making sure that you're away, making sure that everything's gone smoothly. It's those little things just to make your life easier.
And I suppose there might be a slight extra cost, but it's probably because you've given your experience and you've suggested something that's different to something that you would just go and find online. So that's where the extra expense is going to come.
Exactly. So just a bit like if you were needing marketing advice,
Mm-hmm.
you would go to a marketing expert rather than doing it yourself on Canva or something like that.
Yeah.
You're going to pay that little bit extra to have an expert in their field that will actually give you exactly what you want.
Fantastic. So would you say there's a particular type of client that you work with primarily, or is it anyone and everyone that uses you?
Anyone and everyone, really. I deal with all spectrums of holidays, from minimal budgets up to unlimited.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say the majority of my customers are people that are looking for that slightly higher end trip, that are looking for something that maybe you can't put together online. It does need that expert advice, and they want their hands held a little bit. They're planning something a bit different. They're going to places that they don't know a huge much about,
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're doing a multi-center and just need a little bit more help with putting something together and want those little special extras added in because they wouldn't have thought about doing that. Having a private tour guide for a particular place that they wouldn't have maybe even thought about going to because they weren't sure it was there. So I would say that that's the majority of our customers.
Yeah. And I suppose as well, you say having private tour guides and things like that. Someone booking it themselves that have no experience of having gone somewhere, you wouldn't necessarily know there's something extra to see that a private tour guide could take you to find. But someone like yourself will know, if you go here, it'd actually be really handy to have this sort of person to do this with you, because then you'll get all these extra experiences that if you just went there and had a look around, you'd miss. So
yeah, precisely. And we've got contacts with guides on the ground in most destinations around the world that we know personally or have had an awful lot of dealings with, and they'll take you also to places that you wouldn't know. They'll take you off to a little restaurant that will be fantastic, that quite often is off the beaten path, which you would never find yourself. You get to know them and they will really enhance your experience whilst you're away.
I think they bring the culture as well, don't they? When you
Completely.
Work with local people, they'll take you to somewhere the locals would go rather than a touristy destination where kind of anybody that's booked a package holiday online maybe would just turn up at almost as a bus full of people turn up there. They're going to take you somewhere a little bit different.
Yeah, completely.
So would you say there's kind of a direct link between what people earn and how much they tend to spend on holidays? Or would you say sometimes actually people that might have a lower income want those same experiences and would just take longer to save up for them?
I think on a general basis, there is a link, and people that do earn more do spend more. It's that disposable income situation. But you do get, especially when it comes to honeymoons and things like that, people will save up for longer to get that once in a lifetime trip. And especially for a honeymoon, it really is hopefully a once in a lifetime trip.
Yeah.
And people do save up for years for that. And will spend more than they would on a normal holiday just to get that really extra special trip.
Something wow.
Something wow. And honeymoons, I love planning. So everyone's so excited for them. And you can really put something special together.
Would you say that people tend to have just one holiday a year, or would you say that people have multiple holiday years? What's kind of the norm now for people?
Well, I think the norm has changed in the last 18 months, but let's go back to pre-COVID. And I would say that people are taking more than one holiday a year. We went through all our sort of stats and things like that recently, and the average was coming up at 2.5 holidays. Not that you can have half a holiday, but just on an average. So people were looking at maybe 2 holidays abroad and then maybe 1 in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be a big holiday plus a city break plus a, let's say, caravan holiday with the kids in the UK, or a cottage or something like that.
So it's kind of varies between people though, I guess, because I guess some people wouldn't have a holiday at all for several years and would just have one big one every now and again.
Yeah, very true. And I just think also now going forward from COVID, I think people are going to start having more. People haven't been able to travel for almost 2 years, or certainly not easily. So I've noticed that people are making the most of that and getting things booked in.
Yeah. I think as well, people that haven't been on holiday for a long time previously have then realised, actually, I would like to go away more often. And they might even make it a more regular thing than pre-COVID, because of not being able to go anywhere and do anything. It's made people change kind of their mind about travel.
I think so. And I think as things are starting to ease and restrictions are easing, things are getting a little bit easier, and the testing and things like that are in place. It's going to be in for a while now, but people are starting to accept it and plan that into their holiday. And
it almost becomes a norm, doesn't it?
And I think that's exactly it. It is becoming a norm, and it is becoming easier. And it is just going to be one of those things that we have to deal with.
So you mentioned earlier about honeymoons, and obviously people save up for those for quite a long time to be able to have something quite special. But do you find that people come to you maybe years in advance of booking holidays, or do they come kind of last minute? And how do they tend to then go about paying for them?
It's one extreme or the other, really. You get the people that want to go away next month, and that's absolutely fine. But there are lots of people that do come well in advance, years in advance, with, especially for the big trips, something that they're really looking forward to, or they're planning it for a special occasion, a 40th, a 50th, a wedding anniversary, etc. And they'll often start planning before they can even book. And we'll never turn them away, and we'll start the planning process then, because those sorts of trips, they need tweaking. We'll tweak them multiple times until we get it right. And then we have that plan in place. It's all written down. It's there ready for as soon as the booking window opens, we can go ahead and get that booked. Then they can start getting excited and know that that holiday is done. So rather than coming to us when the booking window opens to start the planning process, which then obviously cuts into that time, we'll start it at any point and get that trip really nailed down.
Fantastic. So when you say the booking window opens, do things sometimes get booked up so that if you haven't kind of thought of it in advance, that you're then too late and miss out on things?
On specialist holidays, that can be the case, especially on cruises. With cruises, especially avid cruisers that go multiple times a year, know exactly what they want on certain ships. They want certain cabins. And if they're not there booking on the day that they open, they may not get the cabin that they want.
Okay, so naive question here. What in particular about a cabin on a cruise ship is important? Obviously, I know obviously the level on the ship that you're on, I can understand, and whether you have a view or not. But what else would there be? Why would you be so picky about your cabin?
If people know their cruise ships and have been on them before, they know the particular location they want to be. So it's not just about deck number, that's very important, whether they want to be midship, whether they prefer to be on the aft, whether they prefer to be forward, not being near the lifts, not being near the stairs, the laundrettes. They know exactly where on the ship they want to be. So you'll find that people that do know their cruises will be booking 2 years in advance.
Well, I didn't know that. I've got a cruise booked for, next year now. And literally, I had no idea. I was just like, oh yeah, let's have that room. Like, I didn't even consider that.
And people that don't cruise that often, it's not so much a problem. It's the ones that know where they want to be. And if they can't get that, then quite often they'll wait and book another cruise to make sure they can get the cabin that they want.
Wow, that's quite extreme. I wouldn't have expected that. How do people tend to pay for holidays? Do they tend to pay for them as a lump sum all in one go? Do they pay for them monthly? What's the norm, or is there not a norm?
The norm is to do a small deposit at time of booking
Mm-hmm.
and then pay the balance when it's due, which tends to be 14 weeks before departure. There are multiple other options as well. We also offer a direct debit system, so people again can pay a small deposit and then the direct debit will just come out of their bank account every month. They don't need to think about it and it's all taken care of. If customers don't want to have that fixed amount every month, but don't want to keep it in their own bank account until balance due for risk of spending it, they can always just pay off bits as and when they want to. So if they find that they've suddenly got a little bit of spare extra cash, want to put it onto their holiday, then they can pay off at any point.
So you're almost like their savings account and you've got it there then ready to pay off the balance when it needs to be paid.
Yeah, make it as easy as possible for people.
That sounds good to me. So do you have an example of a client that you've booked a holiday for and what the benefit of you being used was in that scenario? So maybe something that went wrong and obviously having you has been handy to have or something like that?
One example we had a few years ago now was customers flying out to the Caribbean. They were transiting in Barbados and hurricane season was in place, so flights were being affected. My customers, they got to Barbados, the flight wasn't moving on to Antigua, so they were stuck. Luckily, we were straight on it. We had them rebooked onto the flight the next day. Because they were on a through ticket that was protected by the airline. They were put up in a nice 4-star hotel for the night. All their food was provided and they were fully taken care of. They were talking to passengers on the plane next to them who had booked that inter-island flight separately. They'd packaged it all themselves. They were stuck at the airport. They couldn't get on a flight the next day because everyone had already been reprotected onto that flight.
Mm-hmm.
They were having to source their own accommodation. They were left stranded, really. They were stuck on their own.
A nightmare start to a holiday then, basically.
It's not ideal, really, no. So it's those situations which luckily, touch wood, don't happen very often. But it's when they do that having someone on the end of the phone, it really does make your life so much easier when travelling. So the last thing you want to be is stuck when you're away somewhere that you don't know. You've got no idea where you are.
You might not speak
who
their
to speak to.
language.
Exactly. I mean, another instance was literally as COVID hit. And I had a customer who was flying out to Honduras to go and see her brand new grandson. And it was the day before America closed its borders to UK citizens.
Mm-hmm.
So she should have technically still been able to travel because it wasn't until the next day. But she was on the phone to me at 4:30 a.m. They were refusing her boarding at the airport, which, to be honest, now in hindsight was a good thing because otherwise she would have been stuck there for potentially 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
But it's having that person. She was in an absolute panic at the airport, but she knew that she could get hold of me at that time of the morning.
4:30 a.m? What are you doing awake at that time?
Well, the phone woke me up. Obviously, luckily, people don't tend to phone at that time. But in that first month of COVID hitting, I was tending to be on the phone with customers up until about 1 o'clock in the morning if they were in the States, and then back on the phone at 4 o'clock in the morning for my customers that I had in New Zealand.
Wow.
Just coordinating all of their trips home, to get them back as quick as we could.
So that's a bit of a clue of how COVID has affected kind of the travel industry. What else has changed? Anything?
I think a huge amount has changed now that things are starting to bounce back after the worst time in the travel industry's history. People are looking to do things differently now. I think the industry has changed slightly as well, and it's there. We're all there to help customers. It's all travel agents are there for, is to share their love and experience of travelling with other people. Costing, unfortunately, has gone up. We're seeing quite an increase for 2022 in prices. And I think it was always understandable that it was going to happen, always expected, especially as we are now looking at 2 years worth of increase.
Yeah.
And
So it's just come as more of a shock because we haven't seen those gradual increases in prices.
exactly, we would have seen it for this year, which didn't really happen, and it's all being pushed on to next year. Tour operators are trying to make their money back, and it was always going to happen. We all think that actually they're desperate to get people travelling again, so price is going to be rock bottom. It really isn't the case.
They can't afford to.
They can't afford to. We've seen it in the States, especially with car hire. The cost has risen dramatically.
Wow.
I think things will level out again. They really will. I just think the next year will be a little bit higher than anyone planned, but people are desperate to get away. So, unfortunately, the costs we are going to have to suck up a little bit, but I do think they will start to level out, and the sales will come. The sales will come, and there will be some bargains out there for sure.
Just a matter of when.
Yes.
So you obviously get to look into lots of incredible places for your clients for holidays. Are there any that you're envious of that you haven't experienced that you'd like to do?
Always get a little bit of holiday envy. The one that's on our bucket list is a African safari.
Mm-hmm.
We've not wanted to do it yet. I've got a 10-year-old son, and I think it needs another couple of years for him to appreciate it.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of opportunities to do it whilst he was younger, and I couldn't think of anything worse than taking a noisy 6-year-old on a safari.
Frighten off all the animals and
exactly, ruin it for everyone else. So I think give him another couple of years, and that's going to be our one once he's 12 or 13.
Fantastic. So a question that we normally ask to all of our podcast guests is probably going to be a very difficult question for you. And if you don't have an answer, I'll accept that. You can just give a few different places. But we'd like to ask, what is your favourite holiday destination?
I can never answer this one. There's been too many, and all for different reasons. I'll give a few answers because I'm chickening out on that answer.
That's fine. We'll all appreciate it because we'll all be looking into them. So go for it.
Thailand is my most visited destination. Mm-hmm. I love the food, I love the people, and I just think it's such an amazing country. Svalbard, so northern...
I've never even heard of that.
Northern Norway. That was probably one of my favourite trips because it was so different. I headed up there for 5 days to go looking for polar bears and snowmobiling for 5 days.
Wow.
So that was just amazing and just something so different. And Indonesia is also one of my favourite countries. It's so diverse with obviously so many different islands, each with their own culture. And it's just an amazing place with the most fantastic scuba diving.
Fantastic. So I'm now going to have to go follow you on Instagram and everywhere because I'm sure I'm going to be very, very envious of all the places that you post on there. But if any of our listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to find you and get in touch about planning their own holiday?
Email or phone is always the best way to do it.
Fantastic. What we will do, rather than you listen or read them out on here because people will never remember them, in our podcast summary we'll put your contact details on there. So if anyone wants to get in touch, they'll have your details to hand.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining with me today, Sarah. I really appreciate you putting up with my technical skills and my technical abilities today. It hasn't been the greatest, but I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, we've completed today's episode. We hope you have enjoyed following along with us today and taking another step closer to a financially secure future.
If you've enjoyed today's podcast, you can head over to themoneycompass.co.uk where you can find out more information, hints and tips from today's episode.
If you'd like to get more involved, share your own experiences and learn from a friendly community on a similar journey to you, why not join us in our Facebook group, The Money Compass, where we will support you in navigating your way to financial success.
Thank you for listening and see you next time.